interest now to us is this new flood area of study. And I'm going to zoom out and zoom to the extent of that layer so you can kind of see that up close. Now in the book they have you zoomed out to a little different extent. They have the other layers turned on, but I'm going to leave this like it is for this explanation just so you can kind of see a little more what's going on. I think it's a little clearer to see it that way. And the next step we're going to get to calculating the acreages, and they point out something very important. If you turn on the attribute table for this new flood area of study layer, you notice we have a field in there called acreage. We used that before to summarize it in tutorial 4.1. Now something that's very important to remember and is that whenever you do something that involves cutting or clipping, it only automatically updates those fields in a geodatabase, which this is, but I scrolled over in the table, it only automatically updates this shape area and shape length. Those fields were automatically recalculated when we performed our analysis. Any of these other fields, including the acreage field, was not. And the reason is because that's not part of ArcGIS. This was a field that whoever created those original tables, they ran a calculation on these records to get these numbers. ArcGIS doesn't know anything about the acreage field per se. All it knows about is those two that it created. The program created these two fields. And whenever you made a geodatabase, it created those fields, and because of that it is able to automatically update those two fields when you do any kind of analysis or changes to those layers. However, it cannot do that automatically with the other fields in the table. So that's in a way the same problem I described earlier with the shape files. The shape files are like that, except they don't have the shape length and the shape area in them. So when you're working with a shape file, you won't even be able to do what you're going to do next in the book here, which is recalculate that acreage based on this shape area field. In a shape file, you need an external tool or utility, which I'm going to show you soon in the course how to get one. And that will let you on the fly, just you can click a button and real easily calculate or recalculate your acreages with just a click. So but it's important to remember that, because I like to tell people, and you'll hear others talk about how that's a big advantage of having a geodatabase, is that you've got these two fields that are automatically recalculated for you. But what happens is it's real easy to then extrapolate that to also think that it means that it's going to recalculate everything in your table for you, and that's not true. It will not recalculate any of the other fields. So that's very important to remember. Now what is nice, and this is something new in the newer version of ArcGIS, is that it will let you recalculate acreage with the tool that's already built into ArcGIS. Used to be you had to get an external tool to get to acreage. You could get to what was the equivalent of this shape area field with a tool that they had built into the program, but it wasn't giving it to you in the units you would necessarily want. It might be in decimal degrees or whatever. And now they've got a tool that will actually calculate acres for you. So what we're going to do is click on the acreage field, and then we are going to right click, and we're going to go to geometry. Okay, the calculate geometry. And it warns you that you're about to calculate this outside of an edit session. So it's basically saying this is going to be permanent once you run this. Okay, there's no way to undo your results basically when you do this. So we're going to go ahead and click yes on this, and then we're going to select the we know that we have area selected in the top. Okay, and it's using the coordinate system of the data source, which it looks like this data source must be in Texas, because it's selected it automatically based on what it found in the basically the geometry that was stored with that layer. It knows that the projection was set to and already predefined to Texas, so we won't mess with any of that. What we do want to change is the units, because by default it's going to calculate the area figure for us in square feet, and we want to change that to acres. And you notice we could pick any of a variety of things. If you needed hectares, you could do that as well. But it's an acreage field, and so we want acres. So we pick that, and then we're going to click OK. And that recalculated the numbers. And if you looked beforehand, you probably noticed some of them that changed. You could actually see a few of them change. But it actually run through and recalculated that fast on what was really just 83 records, but it went through and calculated the new acreages for us on those records. So now with that done, and by the way, I think that only recalculated the acres for these 83 polygons that we defined out of this layer. In other words, all of the other records that are not showing up here but are really still part of that layer, because they're just not included in our definition, I don't think those were recalculated. I'm not 100% sure of that, but I'm pretty sure of that. So another thing to keep in mind. And sort of the takeaway from that is anytime you get a layer down the road that somebody gives you or that you acquire from some download source whenever you're doing analysis for your class project, say, or something, anytime you see an acreage field in the table, you might want to add a new field to the database and call it like acreage 2, or just delete that and recalculate it. I like to add a new one because I like to compare them and see the difference. But you might want to recalculate your acreages on layers that you get from other sources. For one reason, you never know when something like this was done to it. Maybe somebody cut that or did a union to derive that layer from other sources and then provided it. And they might not have recalculated the acreages. Or, and this is always the case, is you might be your projection will make a difference as well. So if you're using, say, UTM and they used state plane, and maybe you reprojected it into UTM, well, you're going to get a different some acreage numbers than what you had just by the projection alone. Now that's not going to be a lot for small areas; it'd be real negligible. But a lot of times you're working with large areas, and it would add up to a significant difference. So always keep in mind that you might want to recalculate that acreage when you're getting it from sort of an unknown source, or you're not sure that they've already done that. So now that we've calculated the acreages here for what we need, we can go in and we're going to run some summary statistics on a couple of the other fields to get the other answers for what the county commissioners need for their project here. So we're going to summarize two different fields in the table. The first one is the use code, and what we'll do is like we did earlier, we select the field, and then we're going to right click and go to summarize, and we're looking under acreages because that's what we're interested in again, just like before. We'll expand that, and we want to click on the sum so that we're going to summarize by use code the acreages. And then we want to make sure we route it to our table. So we're going to click the button here, and we're going to name the table the study use area. And by default, notice it's putting it in the land report. And the last exercise, I think, because the book didn't really clarify, I had you just put it outside of that. That's either way is okay for now. Since it's already in there, I'm just going to leave it in the land use report. It doesn't really say in the book. Don't think it's going to be that important for what we're doing here. So we'll just call it, like they say, study area use. No spaces. And click save. And then we want to run the report. And we want to add it to the map. Okay, and we see that it added that. If I move the table, you can see that it added that there. And then let's go ahead, before we look at it, let's go ahead and just run the other one. They've got that under the your turn. Let's see. Here we're looking for the zone field. And there's the zone field, and we'll right click, summarize, and we again want acreages, sum, and by default this time it is putting it in the area that we want. And this time let's call this one, they say, a study area zone. And we'll save and say OK and let it add to the table. You can see that it added it over there. And now let's just go ahead and close this table. And then they want us to just look at the results, so we can right click on the study area use, the first one that we made. Open that up and you'll see that we only had 3 records in this one. If you remember in tutorial 4.1 we had like 5 or 6, I think, but that's because we had a bigger area with more of a range of zones in it than what we had in this flood zone area. Here we had some vacant, looks like some vacant area, and we had some F1 area, which if I recall looking back in the book, F1 was commercial, and we had some multifamily residential. And this gives you a count of how many of those we had, and then we've got the acreage of each. And it's interesting, the acreage is pretty evenly divided, it looks like. And we can do the same thing for the study area zone. We can right click and open. It opens a new tab in our table view. And again, we only have 3 areas in there, and they correspond to the A, B, and FW. Don't recall what those are offhand, but it's got an explanation somewhere in there. The acreage is a lot more variable in this case. You got a lot more acreage in the A zone and the least amount in the FW zone. And for the sake of time, I'm going to stop here. You could proceed now to add these to the layout, and remember again, you do that by just going to the little options down here and add table to layout. And you could add each of these tables to your layout and organize them nicely there to where it'd be more presentable. And then you want to save, of course, save your project. And I've already saved it earlier, so it's already named like I want it, and it's already routing it to the folder that I want it. So in this case, I can just click the Save button. Again, if you did not rename it, remember to go to File and Save As first so that you don't overwrite your original tutorial 4-2. But here I'm just going to click Save, and that should take care of exercise 4.2. So hopefully this helped. I know it's a little bit long. But wanted to kind of go through some of this for you. Several of you had called me about various issues you were having, and hopefully this tutorial, this video helped you with those. Give me some feedback and let me know if that was the case or not. It's a little bit of effort to do this. Takes some time to make them as well as listen to them. So if it's helping you, I'll try to continue to do that. If most of you were able to do it without any problems, then I'll probably not make one of these for those. But I don't mind doing it if needed. So just give me some feedback about that and let me know. And keep in mind that this chapter and the next chapter that you'll be doing are 2 of the most important chapters really that we're going to cover, and so you'll want to really practice these and get comfortable with these. You'll find that when you're doing your class project and just a lot of GIS work in general, that you'll use the skills learned in these 2 chapters probably more than any of the other ones that I've come across. And the next chapter is rather long. Will probably take a couple weeks to go through that. There are 9 different parts to it. But again, it is just very important stuff, and so I want to give you plenty of time to practice with it. So if you've already finished 4.2 and you feel comfortable with it, go ahead and start working on 5, and I'll put that as a official part of the assignments in next week's class, probably for the next couple weeks. But just wanted to give you a heads up about that. So good luck, enjoy, thank you.